I like the MCU. I mean, I used to love it, but the movies have felt a lot less fun lately. So as we enter into Phase 5, I want to revisit what I maintained was the worst MCU movie for a very long time. Now, it's not Iron Man 3, it's not Thor 2, Eternals, nor Captain Marvel. It's Ant Man and the Wasp. And with Quantumania coming out, I wanted to see if it was truly as terrible as I remember. I had held this up as the "this is how it all goes wrong for Marvel" movie when it came out, and felt like it somehow escaped a lot of the ire from the fans. And look, what the MCU has done is incredible. I'm not disputing that. Building an interconnected franchise over 17 years that even makes a little bit of sense should be impossible. But to me, this was the first movie where they used the brand to prop up a sequel that didn't need to be made. And remember, it came out 2 months after the Infinity War cliffhanger in 2018. So right after we watched something that affected every character in the entire universe, Marvel dropped 2 pointless movies before Endgame finally came out. And Marvel knew what they were doing. This movie takes place before Infinity War, and yet they released it after. So we all went to see this movie to watch the story progress. It was entirely unexciting, and then all anyone could talk about was the post-credits scene. And ever since, that's been the formula. Disney realized it's okay to rush out an uninteresting story about uninteresting characters as long as there's a good post-credit teaser to get everyone all hot and bothered. Ant Man and the Wasp proved how bad MCU movies can coast off of the bigger picture. But it didn't have to be like this. You had the most charismatic actor in Hollywood, you have a cool and interesting superpower with a cool villain. This should have been a smash hit. This was before Marvel's VFX got completely terrible, and the cast is incredible. I love Paul Rudd. Role Models is one of my favorite movies. I love Judy Greer, I love Lawrence Fishburne, I even love Ronnie Nishimoto.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Nishimoto, personal trainer to the stars.
But this movie, man, this movie is dumb. So settle in as I try to explain to you 2018's Ant Man and the Wasp. So the movie opens up with a scene straight up lifted out of The Amazing Spider-Man. And it wasn't very good then. Kevin Feige was even consulted on those Amazing Spider-Man movies, and he pointed out how stupid all the stuff with Peter's parents were. But this is the exact same thing. It's a flashback to Hope as a child watching her parents leave in the middle of the night for a top secret mission, and Janet's never going to be seen again. And why exactly are we watching this? We already knew about this event from the first movie. Is this scene just here to show us that they cast Michelle Pfeiffer? Also, the Ant-Man movies pride themselves on being the silliest and most comedic, and this is way too fucking serious of a scene to open the movie with, is it not? I mean, we just watched Hope's mom die, and now we're just gonna fuck over to Scott playing around with Luis and his daughter. Also, they've recast Cassie Lang 3 times now. I feel kind of bad for this kid. So Scott is on house arrest after the events of Civil War, and we are introduced to the first antagonist of many, Ronnie Nishimoto, his FBI parole officer or something. He fills us in on the blanks about what happened in between movies, and lets us know that Scott only has 3 more days until he's free. Hold the phone, what's this? Scott has a dream that he was Michelle Pfeiffer in the quantum realm? What could this mean? It's kind of weird that he does this, but he leaves a voicemail for Hank about his dream, so then Hope kidnaps him. She says her and her dad are on the run. Why exactly? Scott was the one who went to Germany in Civil War. What did they do? Also, Hank was a super secret operative for the government. Shouldn't he have some kind of immunity? I mean, he lost his wife trying to protect the country from a missile launch, for fuck's sake. Alright, wait. Later on, Hank says they're on the run from the FBI because they think he was the Ant-Man in Germany. What the fuck? Then why are they punishing Scott? Doesn't Hank have an alibi? And even if he didn't, why is his daughter in trouble? Hope and Scott get to their lab where she reveals that they're mad at Paul Rudd because he went to Berlin for 2 days while they were working on their quantum tunnel. They think that Scott and Michelle Pfeiffer are quantum entangled and that their mom put a message in his head.
Yeah, I don't believe that for a fucking second.
Next, they need a part to make the quantum tunnel, so they meet up with the guy from Vice Principals, and I've seen this online somewhere, but why wasn't this Justin Hammer from Iron Man 2? But she wants to buy the part, and he wants to buy the entire quantum lab for $1 billion. I don't know why she doesn't just say, sure, we'll contract it out after we finish the tunnel, and then she could always back out later. But instead she declines, and he tells her to kick rocks. So then she just comes back in as the Wasp and starts kicking everyone's ass. Wait, isn't the point of shrinking to do insane stealth missions? Just follow them to their hotel, shrink down, shrink the part you need, take the money, and leave. Instead, we have a fight scene where these motherfuckers just open fire on a person the size of a bug in downtown San Francisco. Also, in the beginning of this fight scene, Walter Goggins just runs away with the part, but at the end he's just sitting there as she walks right by him. This is the one action scene that was in all the trailers, and I have to admit it's kind of fun, except I cannot wrap my head around the discs. I just want to talk about these fucking discs for a second. How do they ever have any problem with the discs, man? I thought the suit was so carefully crafted and necessary to handle sizing one person up and down. But they can throw these discs at living organisms or fucking tanks or fully functional office buildings and just grow or shrink them without a care in the world. The stupid discs even saved Scott's life in the first movie when they got him out of the quantum realm. This is like end world hunger, end climate change, solve energy dependency issues, fix the earth kind of technology. And we're using it to throw salt shakers at goons. Anyway, now they fight the big villain of the movie, Ghost. Wait, why does Ghost show up here? How does she know where they are? And if she wants the quantum tunnel, shouldn't she wait until they build it to steal the lab? Hope's in trouble, so Ant Man shows up, but he doesn't really help, and Ghost gets away with the lab and the part that she needed. And we get this classic line from Michael Douglas.
There's one place I can think of.
No.
They end up going to Scott's ex-con security business, by the way. Why on earth was Michael Douglas so against this? After hanging out in his office, they realize Morpheus might have the exact equipment they need to build a tracker for their stolen lab. So they go see him and he tells them exactly what they need to do. Modify the diffraction units on one of the regulators. Oh shit, it's the cops! Wait, Ronnie Nishimoto is the exact officer tracking Hank too? How short-staffed is the FBI? Shit, sign me up. I always wanted to work in Quantico. They need the original Ant-Man suit to track the lab, and damn it, Scott told us he destroyed it. But guess fucking what? He didn't. Now they're gonna team up to get it back. Alright, big action scene coming. Oh wait, no? No, it's in his daughter's school. So they're gonna go there. Can we please go back to Thanos and the Avengers, please? Please. Oh my god, why do they need their Ant-Man suits to get a trophy from an elementary school? They're not breaking into a bank, why don't they just walk in and take it? They're mostly just dicking around when they're in the school anyway. I thought this was a super urgent situation. Also, Paul Rudd's suit doesn't even work. Why did you send him in? Because he knows where to go? No, that can't be it. We know the suit has cameras and mics in it. We can walk the Wasp through everything in real time. We don't need him. And that's another criticism this movie gets a lot. The Wasp doesn't need Ant-Man, like, at all. She's so much more skilled than him at using the technology, and she's a better fighter. She's smarter than him, he's rarely any use to her, and his big emotional arc is accepting her as a partner. I don't think it really breaks the movie, but it is kind of weird that they're supposed to be a duo, a team, but he's basically Incrediboy from the Incredibles movie. He just makes things worse. I hate to use the cliche that he has nothing to do in his own movie, but yeah, it's precisely that. Well, they get the old suit and it works. They're able to track the lab by modifying the diffraction units on the regulator. They head to Ghost's evil lair, and then Paul Rudd says this.
That's Ghost?
When the fuck did they find out her name was Ghost? Did they ever say that? She doesn't introduce herself. He doesn't say that's the Ghost. Oh, this is so stupid. Okay, so they shrunk in to get the lab. Then they just grow back to normal to grab it, and that wakes Ghost up. I guess they can't shrink the lab further, but why didn't they just stay tiny? I mean, they're still strong when they're small. Were they just gonna walk out of the room fully grown? Why didn't one of them keep watch? Or maybe it was a trap and Ghost was awake all along. Either way, she knocks him out and takes them hostage. So now we learn Morpheus is a surprise villain, which I think brings our antagonist count up to 4. And we get one of the worst exposition dumps in MCU history. 6 minutes of backstory on Ghost and Dr. Foster. Is his name Dr. Foster? I'm pretty sure it's Dr. Foster. I don't know though. Ghost and Morpheus are working together. Her dad worked at S.H.I.E.L.D., but then Hank fired him. He lost his prestige. And she says he took a bunch of risks to restore his credit. Yada yada yada, some big experiment went wrong and his wife and child were there. Why exactly? I guess this guy went to the Dr. Octopus school of doing experiments right in your fucking living room. Because of all this, Ghost wants revenge on Michael Douglas. But how is this his fault? Like, at all? Let's say I work for United, and I'm shitty at my job, so they fire me. If I try to start my own airline and end up crashing a jet full of people because I ignored safety restrictions, is that on them? Marvel, you're dropping the ball with your villain motivations. It's okay sometimes for someone to just be bad, alright? Look at Hans Gruber. We learned that Ghost got ghosty powers from the explosion, and then Morpheus came in to help her. Again, why wouldn't they just call Michael Douglas if this is his specialty? Is it just because he's mad at him? But anyway, instead, S.H.I.E.L.D. decided to make Ghost a super spy and promised they'd cure her if she did a bunch of stealth missions for her, I guess. Obviously that didn't work out, so she started following the Pims around, found out about Janet, and now she thinks this is the only way to cure herself. She believes Janet has been absorbing quantum energy, and if she can harness that energy and extract it, it will save her life. But it will also kill Janet. Okay, how do they know that any of this would work? And more so, how do they know it's a zero-sum game? They don't even fucking know if Janet is alive, but all of a sudden they're gonna absorb her quantum energy? Shouldn't they work together on this? Why is it just save one of them or none of them? I don't understand how any of them have any reason to believe any of this. And then Scott's cell phone goes off. Bro, if you're holding someone hostage, you should probably dump their cell phones. I don't even want to get into how little sense Morpheus's plan makes, especially because he knew Ghost stole the lab before he taught Hank and them how to track it. But believe me when I say it's just a bunch of random shit happening, which conveniently leaves an opening for Hank to fake a heart attack and our heroes to escape with the lab. And that makes it a perfect time to cut back over to our other random bullshit happening. Sonny Birch is back, baby. He showed up at the security company because he wants them to make a bunch of jokes about truth serum or something. And then Luis is getting tortured. And we get a really cool Michael Pena scene, but it just feels kind of cheap. You know, this is the Edgar Wright from the Ant Man movie that Marvel notoriously fired. It kind of feels like the MCU is parodying itself. It doesn't feel genuine or original.
You put a dime in him, you gotta let the whole song play out.
He'd like human jukebox.
Dude, I fucking get the metaphor. Are you calling me stupid?
Oh, my abuelita had a jukebox in the restaurant. Yeah, only played Morrissey. And if anybody...
And then all the villains find out where Scott, Hank, and Hope are hiding. Anyway, now that he knows where the lab is, Walter Goggins calls the FBI to give him a heads up on Scott's location. I'm not sure why Ronnie Nishimoto doesn't go straight to Lang's house because he would have busted him cold there. I'm actually not sure what he's doing because we cut right back over to a scene of Hank, Hope, and Scott working on the quantum tunnel. They start to make some progress, contact Janet, and then Michael Pena calls Scott warning him that the FBI is on their way to check if he's at home. So after holding them hostage, Walter Goggins and his team just left all three of the security guys completely unattended, and he gave them their phones back. So now Paul Rudd has to leave because they're going to catch him not being at his house, and he gets back in time. But then 5 seconds later, when Hope and Hank leave their office, they're caught by the FBI and they're under arrest. For fucking what? What did they do? I seriously do not know. In either way, they're all bent out of shape at Paul Rudd for ditching them, but had he stayed, they could actually be charged for aiding and abetting a fugitive. Next, Ghost steals the lab, they're locking up Hope and Hank, and Paul Rudd is feeling super sad that he abandoned his friends. And I guess that's the message of the movie they're trying to push, like there's something morally wrong with Paul Rudd not being there for Hank and Hope when they need him most, but I really feel like he's always there for them in this movie. And oh, by the way, earlier when they were in the lab, they said they only had 2 hours to rescue Janet. And since then, Scott has escaped to get home, the FBI has cornered and arrested Hope and Hank, they have escaped prison, and the entire climax of the movie is yet to happen. Plus, this is all being done while battling San Francisco traffic. So, Scott rescued them from prison, they tracked down the lab right before Ghost and Morpheus were about to go into the quantum realm, and we get to the climax of the movie. And this is where the movie gets batshit insane. One, we have Michael Douglas going into the quantum realm to save his wife, and I can't for the life of me understand why they didn't cast Catherine Zeta-Jones. Two, we have Ant Man and the Wasp guarding the lab from Ghost. 3, this leads to a chase scene where Wasp and Michael Pena are on the run from both Ghost and Sonny Birch and his goons. The car shrinking chase scene is alright, but there's just too much shit going on. And also, Hope straight up murders so many henchmen in this scene. It's unreal. Seriously, try and remember one specific thing that happened in this scene, other than that the physics make absolutely no sense. And 4, we're still worried about the FBI catching Scott before he gets back to his house. Alright, so Hank finds Janet in the quantum realm, but not before he starts to go insane because he's such an asshole to everybody or something. Luckily, Janet saves him by touching his face. Then she says this place has changed her in the last 30 years, and I guess we'll find out what that means in the next one, because she seems fucking fine. Meanwhile, the chase ends with Scott turning into Giant Man and securing the lab from Sonny Birch. Yay, now we can wrap this thing up. But wait, Ghost is back, and she's going for the kill this time, because fuck Ant-Man, that's why. So now Wasp and Ant-Man have to fight Ghost again. And I'm not really sure what Ghost's plan is here. Apparently she thinks if she just stands in the tunnel while Hank and Janet are returning, she'll be cured and Janet will die. However, the good guys subdue her and we bring our heroes home. This right here is why I hate this movie so much. Michelle Pfeiffer just walks up to Ghost and cures her. She just touches her and she cures her. She's healed now. For a second, I thought she might just make Ghost's head explode. Hank, Hope, and Scott would look on in horror and we'd cut to black, and then this would have become my favorite movie of all time. But no, we just want to wrap up this third running clock as fast as we can, don't we, Peyton Reed? So, Ronnie Ishimoto lets Ant-Man off house arrest, the movie ends, and everything's perfect. Wait, what about the guy who wants the lab? And what about Hank and Hope? They escaped FBI custody. They're certainly fugitives now. Why the fuck would they be in the clear just because Scott upheld his house arrest condition? And then here we go, the post-credits scene. The only thing anybody remembers from this movie. It's such a fucking shame. We all sat through 2 hours of filler just to see this, and it barely had any bearing on Endgame anyway. Doesn't seem like Scott would have been snapped, so he could have just helped the Avengers figure out time travel earlier. So that's it. Is the message of this movie that, like magic, you can trick people with misdirection? Is the message that you should work with a partner when you can? Is the message of the movie that you should be kind and trust others if you want to resurrect your dead wife? And that's another thing, this movie constantly tells us how much of a piece of shit Hank is, but he isn't really much of a dick at all. Are they mistaking him for the actual Michael Douglas? Ant-Man and the Wasp has just so many plots. A movie just about finding Michelle Pfeiffer would be enough. A movie about uncovering what happened to an associate's daughter would be enough. A movie about fighting a villain who can phase through walls is enough. Throw in the side plots about the house arrest, the security company trying to stay in business, and the rich crime syndicate trying to steal the technology, and you have a complete and utter mess. But none of it is as interesting as finding out what happens next with Infinity War. Here's the bottom line. Is it as bad as I remember? No. But this movie fails to accomplish anything in its 2-hour runtime. If the point was to advance the story of Scott Lang, well, he's barely in it. If the point was to show us the aftermath of Civil War, that's all handled off screen. If the point was to tell the backstory about Hank and Janet, we already knew all of that. If the point was to rescue Janet, Scott could have just brought her back from the quantum realm in the first movie. We'll see what happens in Quantum Mania, but if I were a betting man, I'd expect them to drop pretty much every single storyline in the sequel. I can all but guarantee we won't see Sonny Birch or Ghost show up because Marvel can't be much more thrilled than I am with how this movie turned out. Ant-Man and the Wasp is the original proof that the MCU really struggles with its second-tier characters, sequels, and leans way too hard on 30-second post-credit teasers. For some reason, the third movies generally turn out alright, so I'll have to get back to you once Ant-Man 3 is out. But till then, thanks for watching.